Let me know if you're in class. So good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma.
I think we have to kickstart the class now. Yes. Is Precious in the house?
Good morning, ma. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma.
Okay. Adurewemi, is that the phone you're using? Precious, which phone are you using to connect? Precious, which phone are you using to connect? I'm not seeing you.
Ma, I'm here, ma.
Which phone are you using to connect?
I'm using my laptop, ma.
Okay, I'm not seeing you. I'm not seeing you. How many participants do we have in the class?
59.
Okay, Victor, let me just make you co-host. Okay.
Hello.
Okay, let's start the class. In the last class, please, if you can hear me, say hi. Victor, please be the
Hi.
Hi. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, you're welcome to another
Good morning,
section.
Mama.
You're welcome to another section of CHM 435. Hope we're able to submit our last assignments.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ma, I
Good.
was not able to submit it.
Because you were late. I gave you guys enough time, and that assignment was very simple. The essence of all this is that, like we did in 322, you don't know the one we're going to use as your CA. So please participate in everything. And the more you do this, the more you realize that this course is very easy. So whatever we're going to tell you to do in assignments and in class test, that's what we're going to gather and put in your exams. Like we did in 322. So just if you pass 322, you should be able to pass this one better. Because it's the same protocol and virtually the same thing, but in a more detailed form. Okay, let's continue. In the last class, I want to do a recap. We talked about extraction. Okay, let me do a recap. I know some people are not around. We talk about natural products, what natural products are. And we talk about, we have two types. We have primary and secondary metabolites. And primary metabolites are what we use as meal, while secondary are what is being extracted and used as medicine or supplements being for health. So that's why they're called secondary. They are produced in minute quantity, while primary are in large quantity. Assuming they said what's different between primary and secondary metabolites, you should be able to say that. Now we'll talk about natural products are substances that we obtain from plants or animals, because we can also obtain natural products from animals. We can also obtain them from microorganisms, because we are looking for their distinctive pharmacological effects. It can be that toxicological or therapeutic. Remember, if you're looking at cancer, what takes care of cancer is the toxic part of our plants. Any plant that has anti-cancer should be toxicological, right? And some antioxidants are also toxicological, because for them to fight the oxidation. Now, we also talked about the classes of natural products. So whenever you're talking about classes of natural products, you're going to involve chlorophyll, carbohydrate, and protein. But when you're talking about classes of secondary metabolite or phytochemicals, we are not talking about carbohydrates. We're not talking about proteins. Those ones are primary. Primary are for the one you normally eat. That's why they're in large quantity. That's why whenever you take some herbs and they are in higher dose, that's why herbs are being standardized for dosage, because if you take it higher, it's going to bring a negative effect. Instead of being an antioxidant, it will be it will induce oxidation. So that's why they're talking about dosage. And that's why whenever they're giving you tablet, they say take two tablets daily. And when you exceed it, become overdose, and it's going to bring negative effect. But meal, you can eat too much. The only thing is that now you and your sleep go battle. If you eat too much of carbohydrate, either you cannot sleep because it's too much in your stomach, or you start having something like over time it can increase to like blood sugar level. But the issue of alkaloid, when you take it excess, immediately you're going to see the effect. So that's different between primary and secondary. We'll also talk about biosynthesis. Biosynthesis are something that happen in the living cell. That's why I say call it biosynthesis. So these are things that happen in plants. Some things happen. So there's some reactions that occur in plant that translates one compound into another. So we say from carbohydrates using shikimic acid pathway, we can also form a flavonoid. So whenever I talk about mevalonic pathway, we can form a terpenoid. So terpenoid comes from mevalonic pathway, while flavonoid is going to follow shikimic pathway. So whenever you ask this question in exam, just follow the direction of the arrows. From carbohydrates, you're going to form your shikimic acid, corysmic acid, aromatic amino acid, phenyl propanoids, then you form your flavonoids. So follow the arrow. You don't need the structure. What you need, you know what is forming. Like somebody asked question in last class. So we talk about these natural products are obtained from plants using so many methods. Remember, we are talking about extraction. Extraction is different method. You can use maceration, you can use infusion, you can use digestion, decoction, speculation, sourcelet extraction method. You can also use steam distillation. And I said the last two, which is sourcelet extraction method. Sourcelet extraction method is called hydrodistillation. So if you're talking about hydrodistillation and steam distillation, and typically talking about isolation of essential oils, how to extract this essential oil from plant, I can use hydro, I can use steam distillation. Now we'll talk about terpenoid. Remember, terpenoid, like we said in that scheme, comes from mevalonic acid pathway. And we talk about, whenever you're talking about flavonoid, what the unit of flavonoid is called isoprene unit. Isoprene unit is made up of 5 carbon atoms. So we have, when we are talking about terpenes and terpenoid, difference between them is that terpenes does not have oxygen. So whenever you're talking about terpenoid, it means that these are essential oils that are oxygenated. Their oxygen can be from alcohol, can be from carbonyl, which are ketone or aldehyde, can be from ester, it can be from ether, can be from carboxylic acid. Now, we also said in the last class that these terpenoids are divided or classified according to the number of carbons they contain. We have mono, sesqui, di, tri, and tetra terpenoids. Now, when you're talking about mono, you're talking about a compound having 2 isoprene units. So that's why we are talking about C10 skeleton. So when we are talking about sesqui, we are talking about having 3 isoprene units. Diterpenoid have 4, while tri have 6. Now, if you look at this now, you realize that we have mono, sesqui before di, and tri. So you should make sure you understand. Don't mumble it up. Don't say, okay, after mono it's supposed to be di. No. After mono, we have sesqui before di. Then after that, we have tri and tetra. Just understand them. Also, you should be able to, at the end of the class, you'll be able to know types of monoterpenoid. You'll be able to give us examples of monoterpenoid, example of sesquiterpenoid, diterpenoid, triterpenoid. You should be able to give us one example of each of the classes. A question can come, what are the classes of terpenoid with their examples? In this case, as you're giving us the example, you're also drawing the structure. The structure is required there. You can also be asked, what are how many, maybe some compounds might be shown and said, indicate their isoprene units. You should be able to know that each of them, every isoprene unit is going to be 5. We are going to see the example of how to identify isoprene units in a compound. But you should know mono, sesqui, di, tri, and tetra. Like I said, carotenoids are tetra. And anything that is higher than tetra are rubber. Then you remember, rubber is being obtained from plant. There is a plant that we call rubber plant. And we also talk about the carrots is always good for eyes. Why? Because it contains beta carotene. So beta carotene is also translated to vitamin A, which is very good in the eye. I will talk about the red pigment in that tomato is because of lycopene. So whenever you're taking tomato, you know you're taking lycopene. That's why it's not good to take unripe tomato, because the unripe ones are very acidic. Now, you can see the isoprene unit. This carbon, this isoprene, they connect with themselves through head and tail. Remember, we're talking about 2 isoprene units is going to form monoterpenes or monoterpenoids. So their joining is tail connect to head. Tail connect to head. So whenever you're looking at isoprene unit, you should be able to indicate where is the connection, because we're talking about 5 carbons. These 5 carbons include all the links. So don't expect the 5 carbon to be only from the straight chain. No, both straight chain and connecting chains are part of the 5 carbons. So the basic unit, this isoprene unit is called 2-methyl-butadiene. So these are IUPAC name of isoprene unit, 2-methyl-butadiene. If you look at that structure, you can look at why it is 2-methyl. The longest carbon chain is 4, and in carbon number 2, we have methyl. So 2-methyl-butadiene, because we have what? Double bond. That's 2-butadiene. It means that there are 2 double bonds. So that's 2-methyl-butadiene. Okay. Now, precursor. You should be able to understand what are precursor. Each of the terpenoids have their precursor. This is a very important aspect of this course. What are the precursors of monoterpenes? What are the precursors of sesquiterpenes? What are the precursors of diterpenes or diterpenoids? Now, in this case of precursor, we are talking about terpenoid because if you look at the end, we have OPP. That oxygen make it to be terpenoid. Now, if you're talking about precursor of monoterpenoids, what are they? Now, from the slide, you can understand that monoterpenoid have diphosphates. They have diphosphates as their precursor. So precursor for monoterpenoid are diphosphates. What are precursors for sesquiterpene? They are derived from phenacyl diphosphates. Phenacyl diphosphates. Why I die is derived from geranyl diphosphates. Geranyl diphosphates. So for monoterpenoid, we are talking about geranyl diphosphates. Sesqui is talking about phenacyl diphosphates. While di is talking about geranyl diphosphates. I want to get used to these three. Mono, sesqui, and terpene, and di. What are their precursors? The precursors are what initiates their synthesis. So precursor of monoterpene, I say, is what? Geranyl diphosphates. While the one of sesqui is phenacyl diphosphates. Please, whenever you're writing, get used to writing there so you get used to their spelling. While the one of sesqui, we talk about geranyl diphosphates. Now we talk about sesquiterpenoid. We have geranyl phenacyl. Then tri is both, this is very important, both triterpenoid and steroid are from squalene. So you should understand the one of squalene, you should know the one of sesqui, you know the one of mono and di. These are very important for you, especially the triterpenoid, which are and steroid are always obtained from squalene. Squalene is a very good compound when you talk about natural product, when you talk about skin. If you're familiar with skincare products, whenever you want to buy a product, any product you see that contains squalene is very good for the skin. So at the end of this course, you should be able to interpret your skincare labels and some of the label of food items from the knowledge you're going to obtain here. So in this particular slide, you should be able to take out the precursor from monoterpenes, from sesquiterpenes, diterpenes, triterpenes. Now, in that, whenever you ask the precursor, you're not expected to draw the structure. So don't get scared about the structures of the precursors. Just understand the precursors. Now, what is biosynthesis of terpenes? How are these terpenes synthesized? Remember, biosynthesis is what happened in the biological system. That's why they call it biosynthesis. It's not like the synthesis that happened in the lab. So this one happened in the biological system. It can happen in plant, it can happen in animal. There are some syntheses that happen in your system. That's why when you take carrots, the carrot is being synthesized and biosynthesized in your system to give you vitamin A. It is in the form of vitamin A that carrot work for your eyes. So you don't take carrot and carrot becomes active the way it is. So there's a reaction that occurs. So whenever you eat food, every food undergoes a reaction. Like when you take carbohydrate, there will be a biosynthesis is going to be converted to glucose. And that glucose is what gives you energy. So that's why I say when there is excess glucose that your system cannot metabolize, they start entering your bloodstream. That's why they say you have high blood sugar. So that's why they say reduce the intake of carbohydrate, because if you look at virtually the food we eat in Nigeria, carbohydrate is everywhere. Your beans has carbohydrates, so virtually everything is carbohydrate. And when you go now add extra carbohydrates that is a synthesized form, that is not natural form. So you're giving your system so much work to do. So when your system cannot work again, when your insulin is working so much, it fails. We're talking about that your insulin deficiency. So that's another kind of diabetes. So that's not the essence of today's class. So in biosynthesis of terpenes, remember we are talking about isoprene units, how these terpenes are being synthesized. Now we are going to use acetyl coenzyme A and malonyl coenzyme A under condensation, cleansing condensation. They are going to form acetyl coenzyme A. Nobody will ask you this in exam, just for you to understand what happens. Then under adult condensation, remember what happens in cleansing and what happened in adult. In adult, we are removing water. So under adult, we are going to form so many compounds before we come to isopentyl pyrophosphates. So these are by what happens in the normal cell for us to get all these terpenes. Remember, terpenes and terpenoid, the difference between them. How can my battery be low? Jesus. Okay. I think I need to reconnect my laptop. Battery is low.
Yeah, that's enough pitch for what.
Ma, your mic is turned off. Oh.
Yes. I'm working on it. How do you feel with this? My battery. I want to reconnect to another laptop. So let's continue. Let's see. Look at monoterpenes. Oh God.
Ma, please, what's the difference between terpenes and terpenoids?
Difference is oxygen. Terpenoid has oxygen, while terpenes don't have oxygen. Victor, can I send I want to send the slide to you so that I can share it.
Oh, okay.
Let me send it to you now so you can share it. My battery is running low. What's this now? I'm sending it to you now. Hello, Victor. Hello? Victor, can you share the slide? Is Victor there?
Sorry, man, can you see it now?
Yes, yes. Okay. I just scroll down to where we are. There's already when I can scroll it. Just scroll down.
Please.
Okay, yeah. So now let's go to the next slide.
This one.
Okay. Now, when we talk about biosynthesis of monoterpenes, remember we are talking about geranyl or geranyl diphosphate. This is what it looks like. Remember, we are talking about 2 isoprene units. If you count the number of carbon attached, you can see that it's going to be 10. Can you do the counting so that we can be on the same page? Count the number of carbon in that geranyl diphosphate. Because what is really happening in formation of monoterpenes, like now we are talking about limonene and alpha terpenol. What we're actually talking about is that OPP is going to be cleaved out and there'll be cyclization of the ring. So that's what actually is happening here. So now, although nobody asks you the question of how to, we are going to get to the reaction of how we're going to use one of the monoterpene to form other monoterpenes. But in this case, just understand what happened. Look at geranyl diphosphates. What happens? There is a movement from geranyl diphosphate. We are going to form neryl diphosphates. And then you can see it's a reversible reaction, so they can interconvert. So from that, we're going to form, there will be a cleavage of the OPP. When the OPP is cleaved out, we are going to have a cyclization stuff to form our limonene. Then from limonene, we also can form alpha terpenol. What happened? You can see what from limonene to alpha terpenol, what we're going to have is addition of water. This is hydrolysis, right? Because of that positive center. Now look at the main transition states we are going to use to form an limonene and alpha terpenol is the carbon, the intermediate that has positive center. So when we do hydrogenation, we're going to form limonene. When we do hydrolysis, or hydration, we're going to form alpha terpenol. So the essence of this slide is for you to know the conversion of geranyl diphosphates to monoterpenes. This is how it is being done. This is how the conversion is. Everything happens until we form a transition state. Then when we are doing our hydrogenation or we are doing our hydration to form either limonene or alpha terpenol. Alpha terpenol. Alpha terpenol, the terpenol means there is hydroxy group there. So ask your question on this slide before we proceed. Ask your question on this slide before we continue.
Okay, Ma, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. The alpha terpenol, can we also consider it as monoterpene? Because that one is having like
all of them are monoterpenes. Both limonene and alpha terpenol are all monoterpenes. Remember, the number of carbon did not change.
Thank you, Ma.
So what we're talking about monoterpenes are the one that contain 2 isoprene units, which is C10. So if you count the number of carbon in both limonene and alpha terpenol, you know there are 10 carbons. That's what made them monoterpenes. So a class of terpenoid is by virtue of the number of isoprene units. Do you understand?
Yes,
Now, it means that So it means that if I want to give example of monoterpenes, I can use this transition state to form whatever I want. I can form my limonene and alpha terpenol. They're also different. They're under the same class of monoterpene, but they can be used as two examples of monoterpenes because they're different. So we're going to see some other examples. The next slide. Victor, the next slide. Now, this is monoterpene structures. We are talking about isoprene units. Now, we say 2-methylbutadiene. This is the basic unit of all terpenes and terpenoids. And we also talk about the composite oxygen-containing functional groups, like we said initially, which make them monoterpenoids or terpenoids. And they can be acyclic, monocyclic, bicyclic, and tricyclic, meaning that they can acyclic, it means that it's having one acyclic and monocyclic. Remember, what is acyclic? You can explain what is acyclic. You can tell us what is acyclic. Now, when you talk about cyclic and talk about acyclic, it means that cyclic are the one in the ring. Acyclic are the one in the straight chain. They are not an open ring. So when a ring is open, we call it acyclic. So they are not covered. Remember, cyclic means covered. So monocyclic is that it's covered, but it's only one ring. Like limonene is monocyclic. It has one ring. Alpha terpenol is monocyclic. It has one ring. We can have also the one that have two rings. We call them bicyclic. The one that have three rings, we call them tricyclic. So you can have the one that is open ring, covered ring 1, covered ring 2, 2 rings that are covered, 3 rings that are covered. Let's go to the next slide and see examples. So the question is, what is the basic unit for terpenes or terpenoids? The answer is what? What is the answer? 2-methylbutadiene. So remember, basic unit, it means that this is where all the terpenes or terpenoids are obtained from. Now look at the example. These are monoterpenes. Under monoterpenes, we have monocyclic, we have acyclic, and we have tricyclic. If you look at them, what made them monoterpenes? Remember, is because they have 10 isoprene units. 10 carbon atoms, that's 2 isoprene units. It means that whenever I count all the carbon in these compounds on the screen, they cannot be more than 10. That's why they're classified under monoterpenes. Why are they terpenes? Because if you look at them, there is no oxygen anywhere. They are just unsaturated. No oxygen. And remember, you cannot see an oil that is saturated. Essential oil can never be saturated. So there's no essential that you see with that double bond. Remember, what made them essential is because they are moving. Because anything that does not have double bond is solid. So that's why there will be a form of double bond, however, in the ring. Now look at my mycin and limonene. Mycin is acyclic because the ring is not covered. From mycin, we can form your limonene, just like there is rearrangement of bonds. The one of the bond is going to use to close, the other one is going to form the double bond. So that's what we'll talk about. That is what we call biosynthesis or interconversion. So we have tricycline, we have 3-carine, we have alpha-toluene, we have alpha-pinene and camphene. So now the first one is acyclic, limonene is monocyclic. Then you talk about bicyclic. You talk about 3-carine, alpha-toluene, alpha-pinene. They are all bicyclic because they have 2 rings in a compound. So maybe the question may be examples of monoterpenes, or they can the question can be examples of a cyclic monoterpene or cyclic monoterpene. I want us to go to past questions and look at how these questions are asked. If by the time you look at 2, 3 years ahead, away, you would have known what the likely questions they are going to be asked, because these things are very similar. That if there is any digression, it will not be much, because nobody have interest in you failing. When you fail the course, it's not a good news for us. So that's why we give you idea of the likely question in the class and with your past questions. When you go through the past question, you must have idea of what is happening. And I always encourage students to go through the past questions before starting a class. It's going to give you idea of what is likely. So at this stage, if you've not seen the past questions, please, I want to encourage you to go and look out for one. Just look at from beginning to the end and look at what it looks like. So then when you're undergoing the classes, you have idea. When you see something somewhere before, when you're looking at it again and it's coming, it's like it's revising or reminding you what you've known. Please do that. So the next slide. Now, look at typical example of monoterpenes. Now, in these monoterpenes, you can be able to know the one that is acyclic, the one that's cyclic, and the one that is bicyclic, because there is no tricyclic here. So who can tell me example of bicyclic? Although it's written there already. Were you able to see any bicyclic? Victor, what are the bicyclics you can see from the compound, from the examples?
We have
To John.
To June.
John.
Another one, Uncle. There's another bicyclic. That one is terpenoid. Which other? Remember all the bicyclic we are seeing? They are all terpenoid, right? Is there any other bicyclic we are seeing?
What of sinew?
Sinew. Because of that oxygen formed a bridge, right? So that
Yes.
is why it's a bicyclic. So I want us to understand it. Now look at between mycene, we have mycene and geranol. Now from there, we are going to look at the interconversion. You realize that from geranol, I can also form my menthol. An oxidation of menthol form menthone, right? Is that true?
Yeah.
For my menthol, can I get menthone? Please, whenever you want to talk, just unmute yourself and talk. Can we get menthone from menthol? And can we get menthol from menthone? What's the reaction? 2 and 3.
Yes. Oxidation and reduction.
Oxidation and reduction. So now from geranol to menthol, what happened? What happened? Okay, when we get to interconversion, you understand what happened. Get to the next slide. But these are examples of monoterpenes. Now, if the question is in the class, examples of monoterpene, and there is no specification of cyclic, acyclic, then it means that you're free to choose from acyclic or from cyclic or from bicyclic. So whenever you're make sure you understand the question before you answer. And don't write structure of a name you don't know. So make sure you correlate your structure with the name. Because if you write a structure with that name, it's as good as nothing. So that's why you have to, if you come to monoterpenes, look for one that are simple. Remember, I keep telling you, you're not impressing anybody by going to choose a difficult one. So if it's alpha terpene that is easy for you, go ahead. And if it's mycene that is easy for you, go anyone that's easy. Just make sure you know at least 2 from each of these classes. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so in this slide, we're talking about a cyclic oxygenated. A cyclic oxygenated. Now, if I don't want to call it a cyclic oxygen, I can call it a cyclic monoterpenoid. But if I want to put oxygenated, I'll call it monoterpenes. So either I say a cyclic monotapenoid, or I'll call it a cyclic oxygenated monoterpene, because oxygenated monoterpenes are called monotapenoids. So understand the question. The question might be, what are the write 2 examples of a cyclic monotapenoid? So whether they say monotapenoid or oxygenated monoterpene is the same thing. But let's go look at it now. Now, these things are very simple. If I know my geraniol, I know my nerol. What's the difference between geraniol and nerol? Look at it critically. What's the difference between geraniol and nerol? Ella, answer my question. Because I'll be calling names now. What's the difference between geraniol and nerol? Answer. Somebody should talk to me. What's the difference? Is there any difference?
One is cis and one is trans.
Simple, cis and trans. So if I know my geraniol, I also know my nerol. So with knowledge of one, I can write the other. Now look at what's the difference between geraniol and geraniol. Nerol and neral. A simple question. Who answer that question now? 213.
Geraniol is an alcohol. Geraniol is an aldehyde.
So what reaction translate the geraniol to geraniol? What reaction can convert geraniol to geraniol? I don't expect you guys to waste time to answer this question. What reaction is happening?
Oxidation.
Oxidation is a simple oxidation. So if I have knowledge of only knowledge of geraniol can help me generate 4 structures. I can form my nerol by bringing the trans aspect of this compound. Then I can form my geraniol by doing oxidation of my geraniol. Then my oxidation of my nerol gives me neral. So I have 4 compounds already, just by knowing one. So that's why this course is very simple. When you look at the previous slide, you realize that when I have my menthol, I can have my menthone. For some, when we are going to talk about interconversion, you will understand how I'm going to form my geraniol. I'm going to use it to form so many compounds. So let's go back to the next slide. Now, in this slide, we're talking about mono and bicyclic terpenoids. Now, this is cyclic. The previous slide was acyclic. Acyclic and cyclic. Difference is that previous slide, we are talking about open ring. In cyclic, we are talking about closed ring. So if the question is mono, if the question, like I said, is just monoterpenes or monoterpenoids. If the question is monoterpenes, remember we are talking about the ones that does not have oxygen. But if the question is talking about monoterpenoids, you're looking at the one that have oxygen. And if the question is talking about monoterpenoids that are cyclic, you go for the one that has ring. Now, cyclic monoterpenes are menthone and menthol. Now, other ones, camphor, synonyl, and others are bicyclic because they have 2 rings. So the only common monoterpenoid that are cyclic are menthone and menthol. So when I know menthol, I have known my menthone, and vice versa. So knowing this one, I'm good to go. But camphor is a compound that we're always interested in. I don't know why. So you should be able to know how to draw camphor. Just know something about camphor. Because I think in detail, I think in some slide, there was a place that was synthesis of camphor. So just understand the structure of camphor. If you look at that structure of camphor, you can use the normal ring or you can use the chair format. Anyone that is easy for you to do. Just make sure you have an idea of that. We never can tell whether person can talk about for you to draw the structure of camphor or something. But just make sure you know, like we said, remember, if I want to talk about a cyclic monotapenoid. If I know my geraniol, I will know my geraniol. I know my nerol. I know my neral. Just knowing my geraniol. That's for a cyclic monoterpene. So when I come to my cyclic monoterpenes, if I know my menthol, I know my menthone. If you're talking about bicyclic, my camphor is 1. I'm fine. So my advice is that make sure you go through this slides again. Just make sure you go through the slides again. I think at the end of the class, I've sent the slide to Victor. So Victor is going to share it on the platform. So you have the slides. So you can always go back to them. Let's go to the next slide, Victor. In the previous slide, there was a place to talk about bicyclic to be tujone. Tujone is another compound that is very simple to know. So I'm trying to tell you how to, some of the simplest compound that you can also know. So from my bicyclic, I should be able to write tujone and camphor. They are simple bicyclic. I can talk about bicyclic monotapenoid. So yeah, with that's 2 of bicyclic monotapenoid, then 2 of cyclic monoterpenes. I'll talk about menthol and menthone. So I'm good to go. So don't go for fenchone or verbenone, because those ones might be difficult. But if you can deal with them, go ahead. But just make sure in every of the class you're able to know 2. But you cannot be asked more than 2. So let's go to the next slide. Any questions so far? If you're in the class, you understand that you have idea of what you're going to read. So that's why the course is very simple. If it's a physical class, we'd have done some classwork before we go, as usual. Because it's an online class, I'm going to send the questions, because these questions are part of it. Every class must have an assignment. So by the time you're done with all assignments, you're prepared for the test or exam. So that's the secret. So let's go to this. If there's no question, you can see we say monoterpene bracket oid, meaning that it can be with oxygen or without oxygen. Now we are talking about what are their physical properties. These monoterpenes are they are mostly in liquid. Some of them can be solid, like camphor. Remember camphor? Do we know what is camphor? Your camphor is a solid monoterpenes. That's why essential oil, that's why it smells. Remember, this is essential oil, the one that has fragrance. So we have now melting points of alpha pinene is negative. Anything that has negative melting point means it's liquid. Anything that has positive melting point means it's solid. So our camphor is solid, which we know the balls. They are solid at room temperature. And that's why they have high melting points, positive melting point. Why alpha pinene? Because you can see it's saturated. There's no oxygen. So it's simply liquid, like oil. So that's why they have negative melting points. Then the boiling point of liquid is always lower than that of solid, because solid has to melt before boiling. So that's why we have different in their boiling points. Then all essential oils, they are soluble in organic solvents. And that is why whenever I want to extract them, we use organic solvent like hexane to extract them. They are not soluble in water because they are oil. So essential oil are oily. That's why they can never be soluble in water. So why? Okay, I'm coming. Let me finish this. Why now monotapenoids can have limited solubility in water? Because they are oxygenated. Because of, like, anyone that has alcohol functional group might be very soluble in water. Anyone that have carboxylic functional group might be, but their solubility is limited. Ask your question.
Okay, ma. I want to ask, is it all terpene that are essential oil, then terpenoid are not essential oil?
Now, terpenoid are all terpenes are essential oil. Not all terpenoid are essential oil. Remember, because of the oxygen, they will have weight. They cannot be very volatile, right?
Yes.
Yes. So that's just that all terpenes are essential oils. Any other question? I think okay, let's go to the next level where we're going to stop about the occurrence of this essential, because in next slide we're going to start about synthesis of camphor. So I would love you to go through the synthesis of camphor before we come to class. But these monoterpenes, they are found in plant and animal, both terrestrial and marine. Monoterpenes are in your roots, in your stem, in your foliage, in your seeds. So even if you have something like all your seeds, when you're talking about root, like ginger have a distinct smell, and that is because of the essential oil. That's monoterpenes there. Some of your stems, some agbo that you're cooking, they may be roots, and whenever you're cooking it, they start smelling. All of them have their unique smell. Some smell are very irritating, some smell are inviting. So that is the essential oil in them. Now, in animal kingdom, essential oil are also what they use as a warning signal. So whenever you want to attack them, some of them are poisonous. They say, this thing if this thing sting you, what it's removing is what it's used to fight distract or repel enemies, invaders. So when they exhibit that, everybody run. Now, if we talk about a butterfly, there's something about butterfly. Or now there's some flower that you see that a butterfly will go and perch on it because they are sucking something. What are they sucking? It's the essential oil from that flower. So that's what they are taking. So some of this animal kingdom, they use essential oil as warning signal. There is a warning compound. They use it to repel the invaders so that they will not be caught. So we have some essential oil that are available around you. If you talk about tea tree essential oil, you can see that it's very therapeutic. You can talk about so many essential oil, eucalyptus. These are essential oil. We can talk about pine oil. This pine oil is commercially available, or even tea trees available. Some of these, so these are essential oil from plants. Now we have a lemon essential oil. You can also obtain this essential oil yourself as a chemist. You can do hydrodistillation. You can start planning and say, okay, in future I want to have a factory that produces essential oil, and start working towards it, because it's a whole lot of money. Because before you buy 5, they cannot go in more than 30-50 mil. For you to have essential oil of 100 mil packed, it means that one is so much expensive. You see them in 20 mil, in 30 mil, at most in 50 mil. And they're very pricey because they're essential. And this essential oil, you should understand that you don't use them directly on your skin. You have to add them to carrier oil because they're very concentrated. So they can burn your skin. That's why if you want to use something like tea tree, they say you can put it inside oil, inside coconut oil, or one oil or the other. Or you want to use eucalyptus, you want to inhale it, they say drop it inside water. So the steam is what you inhale because it can be very poisonous. So I'm going to see you in the next class. That should be on Wednesday. That Wednesday, I must make sure I'm in school so that I will not have the challenges that I had. And I think I might even make it that Victor will be sharing the slide the way we did it this way. It makes it easier for me. So that he will be regulating the slide while we do the lecture. Any question? We're going to start on the next slide of synthesis of camphor. So if you have time, which I will employ you to do, you make sure you go through the slide. Bring the slide, yes, synthesis of camphor, yeah. So that's what we're going to start next class. Now, ask your question because I'm going to send the assignment, and the assignment is going to be turned in before Wednesday class. So you have today, tomorrow. By Wednesday class is starting by 2, right? Victor, Wednesday class is by 2. If Wednesday class is by 2, it means by 1:30 you should be able to turn in all assignments. So we will always turn the assignment before the next class. Ask your question because in the next few minutes the Zoom will take us off. Any question? Ask your question, ask your question. So in today's class, we'll
no.
talk about the monoterpenes, the cyclic, and acyclic and bicyclic. And I say you should be able to know at least 2 examples from each of the classes. And we also know that these essential oils from plant are essential components of the plant. That's why they are not very much. And like I said, you cannot use them directly. You have to incorporate them because they are very concentrated. They can burn your skin. Ask your question. Victor, please take attendance. Go through the past question. If you don't have past question, let me know. Victor. And the course reps for 435. Peter, Precious, Jessica. Make sure you get past question. Liaise with Victor. I want you guys to share past question on the platform because now the school is classes are virtual. Because you're having virtual classes, everything should be shared. I want you to have a foresight, or I want you to have a cursory look at the past questions before the next class, so that if there are things that we've treated so far, are you able to answer them when you see them in the past question? It's very, very important. So it's not about finishing classes, it's about understanding what you're doing. Because anybody that is going to have this class, this course C, please should go. I don't want C, I want only A and B for my students. No, you're my students, so I don't want anybody that will have C. I don't want C. So if you cannot have A and B, if you know your capacity is not A and B, so it means that I don't want you in this class. I want people that can give me A and B. And people that give me 98. I had 98 last semester, last section. So I want 98, I want 80. I want high A's. Some of this is, somebody can say A is A. A is A, yes. But remember, if you're talking about your broadsheets, your transcript, they're going to tell you the number. It's not just having A. If all your A is borderline A, 70, 71, it's not a good news. Like, but when they're talking about going international for your masters, they want to know what is the quantity of the A you're having, because our own A and their A is not the same. So if your A is borderline A, 70, 70, it means that they will tell you that you're not a very good student. But when you have A like 80, 85, 90, they will know that this student is solid, is good. So make sure, don't read and say A is A, please. And even if you're having B, your B should not be 60, 61. It's not a good one when you're tendering it abroad. So make sure that whatever you're having, you're not on the borderline. Let it be sparingly borderline. Let it not be your identity to be borderline. So I know there's no question, but if you have question for any class we've taught so far, for the 2 classes, in the next class, you should also be free to bring your questions. And you can also ask questions on the platform. That's the sense of that platform. You can also ask questions on that platform. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next class. You're free to exit. You guys are writing attendance, okay? I think what you're going to be doing is, as soon as you enter, you write your attendance. You say you're available. So that at the end of the class, before the class ends, attendance will be taken. So I don't want us to be taking attendance at the end of the class. So as soon as you're logging in, you're going to the chat button to indicate your attendance. So please, if you know that you have weak GP, leverage on the elective and study well. This is your last phase as a student as a BSc student, except you want to go and read another course. So make sure you give it all it takes. I'm saying this because you guys are my students. I want you guys to do well, to end well. So if you have challenges, make out time. Let's see, so we can talk over it. So we can know how you can boost your GP or your CGP with this last level. And people that have carryover, make sure you see me. Let's plan so that you don't have extra year. I don't want to have an extra year student. Please, the beginner. Because it's not, I don't want to have an extra year student. I want everybody to graduate at the same time. So that on the day of convocation, I will know we are going next time. Let somebody tell me that I'm convocating. I want everyone to convocate at the same time. So thank you, everyone. See you on Wednesday.